Hi guys, it's Mary. Welcome back. Do you guys have a nice cup of coffee? A nice warm cup of coffee? I do. This is so warm. I love to feel it. And I got my crackly candle back there. It's so cozy in here. Go on, get you something. We're going to have us a little talk about something different today. I'm doing a collaboration with my longtime good friend, Susan, from the channel Little Poet. Susan's channel isn't called Little Poet for no good reason. She is quite poetic. She's an artist. She is actually a musician, but she is self-taught in filmography, and she uses her camera to bring kind of a cinematic approach to the videos that she makes. And so you're fascinated right from the get-go. She carefully orchestrates music. She's tugging on your emotions through the whole thing. She will start this storytelling with her camera, and you visit her in her apartment with her cute little sidekick doggy Desi, who is just so adorable. Everybody wants Desi to come and live with them. For example, a typical Susan video would be, maybe you get to take a car ride and she shows you some interesting abstract views of things and catches your interest, and you're watching and like, where are we going? What is it leading to? Even though in your heart you probably have already guessed that, because she does this a lot. And it's one of my favorite things is she will go into a Goodwill store and she will display things that she tries on, things in the dressing room. She goes through the store, she'll look at different things, and she'll have witty commentary that goes along with it. And you just never know, but you're going to find out in the end what gets to come and live with Susan and Desi at their apartment. And I'm betting that if you're here watching me right now, you probably already know this. I'm not telling you anything new. But if for some reason you don't know Susan, I encourage you to use the link below, go over, watch her video, and I'm sure you're going to subscribe after that. Not long ago, Susan started this series, and it was really interesting and unique. Of course, what would you expect from Susan's channel? She's always going to have something that's a little different than what you're going to find everywhere else. In this series, and I'm one of the first people to do this with her because she hasn't done a lot of them yet, and so I'm really flattered that she asked me to collaborate with her on this. She takes a movie that she saw a long time ago, like when she was a young adult, when she was a child maybe. I mean, one of the ones that she did was a 50-year look. So this was something she saw when she was really young. And she will give you some insight to the movie, what it's about. And she's had some really great people do this with her so far, so I feel like I'm in really good company. The film that I picked has great meaning for me. It's a 1946 masterpiece classic by Frank Capra, and I'm pretty sure that you've probably all seen it. It's a Wonderful Life. Because in the 70s, when I first saw the film, and I know this because my mother told me, not because I remember anything about that. I'm sure I was old enough to remember the film, but I'm quite sure I was probably pouting having to watch this film instead of Rudolph or Frosty or the Grinch or play with my dolls or anything but sit there and watch this film in my 20s. Don't throw things at me. I wouldn't watch it. I get to that opening scene, and I thought it was so hokey, so stupid, that these angels are like these blinking lights, and they're up there and they're like talking. That whole thing was like, nope, not watching this. That's stupid. I don't want to watch no old-timey black and white film. So the first time that I ever watched this and actually paid attention to it, watched it from the beginning to the end, I'm ashamed to admit the Shy Guy made me do it. But, I'm glad that he's done this for me over the years, because I don't know what. I don't understand why. I come from an artistic background, so I don't know why I was having such a problem with old-timey black and white films, but I just wanted no part of this film. But it wasn't until probably into my 30s that this film became something more. I would have gotten a lot more from this film had I watched it earlier on, because I actually did get to a point more than once where I was depressed enough to think that my family, my friends, the world in general would be better off if I'd never been born. And that's the premise. The whole underlying of this film is George Bailey's thought that he would be better off had he never been born. More than 30 years later, this film gets watched in our home all the time, not just at Christmas. I mean, really, this film, for me anyway, is more of a reminder for every day, to push against that stinking thinking, to be grateful. This film is about a man named George Bailey who, through a series of events, never realizes his dreams, the things he wanted for his life. He had big dreams. He wanted to get out of, like most people that live in a small town, George wanted out of this crummy little town. He had big plans for his life. He wanted to build things. He wanted to see the world. He didn't want to get married. He wanted to take off and live his life, and he did not want any part of his dad's life. He didn't want to be in a shabby little office dealing with nickels and dimes trying to save. And through this story, we get to see how over and over George doesn't get to leave. It's like he just keeps getting something thrown in his path every time he gets close to leaving and realizing what it is that he wants for his life. Something gets thrown in his way. I've had this happen in my life too, haven't you? And through this series of seeing over and over just little things happening, more delays, little things happening, more delays. And we've all been there, right? Where it's like things building, a little bit here, a little bit there, building, going on top of each other until finally the straw that breaks the camel's back. And that happened on Christmas Eve, and through no fault of his own. I mean, Uncle Billy did this, okay? $8,000 comes up missing, and George is frantic. He snaps. He's like, oh my gosh. First he's frantic and angry at Uncle Billy, and he's like, you know what this means? You know what, on top of everything else that's happened in my life, do you know what this means? This means bankruptcy, it means scandal, it means prison, and I'm not going. He takes off, he goes home, he has a big fit on everybody there, even to the point of saying to his wife, why are we in this drafty old house? It feels like a refrigerator. It's a wonder we all don't have pneumonia, right? Why do we have to have all these kids? That is so crushing, because from Mary's point of view, they have a wonderful life together, but George can't see it right now. And he leaves. And he gets himself to the point on this bridge where he's contemplating, yes, I am going to jump in here. I'm going to end my life. But he doesn't see, because the same thing happens that has always happened in George's life. See, George is a good man. He's a good person. George just keeps plugging along, and it's in his nature to always do the right thing. He saves his brother's life in the very beginning of the film. George saves his brother's life. He loses his hearing in his left ear. Several weeks go by, he goes back to his job. George saves a family because his boss, Mr. Gower, the pharmacist of the town, he makes a mess up because he's been drinking and he's drunk off his butt because his son has died at college. And he got a telegram and he started drinking, and he's so full of sorrow and stuff, and he accidentally fills these caplets with poison instead of medicine and sends George to deliver the medicine. George knows. He saw. So George does the good thing, the brave thing, the hard thing. He does the right thing. He does not deliver these pills, regardless of the fact that he's been told to do so. And what did he get? He got that ear smashed in. The guy's just banging the crap out of that ear, and it's bleeding and everything. Poor George. He was trying to do the good, right thing. George doesn't go off to college with his friends. His friends go off to college, and George stays behind for 4 years, earning the money to go, earning the money to take his trip. 4 years later, we find his friends have graduated. They're back at the high school dance, right? Rubbing George's nose in it. But George, he's a good guy. It rolls off his back, and he's going to go to college. But what happens? His dad dies, and George ends up having to stay back. For 4 years, he voluntarily gives his brother the money he had saved for 4 years to go to college and stays back because he has to run the building alone. They won't let anybody else run it, so he has to run it, or Potter's going to get to take over the town. So he does it again. He stays behind. And what does he get? What's he get for doing that? He gets Harry coming back with a wife. And Harry says that he's not going to renege on taking over for George so George can go to school, but you can see it as George is standing there by that train. You can see it in George's face when he finds out how happy his brother is, the future that he might have. George sacrifices himself again. He ends up doing what he didn't want to do. He gets married. He gives in and he marries Mary. And you know, it kind of looks like him and Mary will get out of there for a little bit and take a trip. But what happens? There's a run on the bank. And him and Mary lose their honeymoon. And to boot, they give away the $2,000 to keep their customers at the building and loan. And today, that would be like $38,000. Imagine you have $38,000 and you're going to go on your honeymoon, and then something happens and you just give it up. Well, he ends up living in that drafty old house that he never really did like. Mary makes it a home. They have 4 children. He's there. Life's okay, you know, but I can sort of understand how he gets to this bridge, right? He gets in this desperate state, and I have been there myself. Have you? I think that you can actually get to the point of understanding how George is on this bridge thinking about killing himself over this $8,000, which today would be like $110,000. I'll tell you what, it hasn't been that many years ago that I was in a financial mess myself, and it was just over $10,000 that I had no way that I could see how I was going to get a hold of it. And I'm telling you that I had this same thought. I had this thought that if I were not alive, my life insurance would pay for this mistake that I made. I actually got myself to the point of thinking I'm worth more dead than alive, which that hateful Mr. Potter pointed out to George. But divine intervention takes place, and as it always does in my life, and second-class angel Clarence shows up, throws himself in the water, and George, being the person he is, good George who always does the right thing, jumps in and saves him instead of doing that. But as they're in there discussing and drying off, and George makes the comment to Clarence that he thinks that he would be better off if he had never been born at all. And that gives Clarence the idea that makes George realize God's greatest gift, which is his life. So the rest of the movie then is frantic George running through town and seeing exactly what would have happened had he never been born. George gets to see all the repercussions, how Potter would have gotten to take over everything because George wasn't there to stop it. I think that this film is something that every time you see it, you see something you didn't see before. And there's witty conversation exchange going on, things that are happening very quickly that you may have missed the first time that you saw it, or the 60th time you saw it. This film means so much to me because I've been there. You know, there was a comedian named Flip Wilson when I was a kid, and he had this skit, The Devil Made Me Do It. In this skit, you know, Flip Wilson has a character that's a devil on one side and an angel is on the other. And it's like these two are constantly fighting over the person, right? And I very much think that's true. They're not little cartoon characters, but I very much believe that there's a spiritual realm going on around us that we cannot see. And the evil force over here is constantly in war with the good side over here. And this one says stupid stuff like, you know, the world really would be a better place if you weren't in it. You know, the things that you do are really of no consequence. And that's when you need something to remind you and make you think about God's greatest gift, especially around the time of the holidays, because I know from working in the hospital that a lot of depression and loneliness happens, and it's really easy. It's really easy to get there. I invite you to watch this movie 3 times in a row. And I bet you pick up something that you never caught before, right? Probably one of the most memorable lines is the end line of the film. When the bell rings inside the tree and Zuzu says, "Look, Daddy, teacher says every time a bell rings, an angel gets its wings." And George smiles really big and says, "That's right. That's right." But for me, it's the words that Clarence wrote in the Tom Sawyer book. And that is, that no man or woman who has friends is a failure. I try and tell you all the time how much you mean to me and that you are the best part of the Fritzy family. And you are. But today I'd like you to think a little deeper about that. and how much you actually mean to the people in your life. And I ask you to also go out and be a blessing to somebody today. Make them feel like they matter. It will enrich your life. It might just be giving them a reason to really appreciate the greatest gift that they've ever received. I hope that you will check out the link below to Susan's channel. Go over there and watch her video. Until next time, love you, see ya. Bye. And I'm out.
Can you hear the bells? We have to wait until the bells stop ringing. They're the bells of St. Mary. Because I'm a saint. No, it goes, jingle bells, Batman smells, Robin Lady. Do you like my opera? I've been practicing for you. I think I've pretty much perfected it now. After that, I'm pretty sure that I'm right and you will have subscribed. Get it out of your system. Okay, I'm ready. I'm thinking, and I might be wrong here, because when I think, it's always a catastrophe, and I'm usually wrong. A carefully orchestrated. What's that? Like an orchestra that shreds something? That would be how I played a violin. I would shred it. I'd orchestrate it. What it's about, and the difference that. What's this? We're like poof, poof, poof. I'm chat. What are you saying? Boom, boom, boom. You know what I'm doing, Rocky. Rocky doesn't go with It's a Wonderful Life. Actually, it doesn't go with the plot of It's a Wonderful Life, but life is more wonderful with Sylvester Stallone in it. Okay, the cat's out of the bag. Meow! I guess it's not a secret now, because what was this throw in your head stuff? Meow! I guess it's not a secret now, because I just told you. Don't get that stickin' thinking. You better not get that stickin' thinking. What the heck is a stickin' thinking, Mary? I don't know, just something I made up. Go with it. The camel that broke the straw's back. That's the other way around. The straw that broke the camel's back. The camel that broke the straw's back. And we've all been there, right? Where it's just like building. Street signs, stoplights, people rushing, people... And through no fault of his own. No fault. Safety! I didn't do it, did you? And, let's just take a vote. I'm sure everybody here does not like, and maybe even says they hate Harry Potter. No, not Harry Potter. Oh, Mr. Potter. For you, it's left, right. No, wait, is that right? Left? Is that correct? Left, right, left, right, left. My right is your left. Who's on first?